In high school, I was suspended, so my mother was not impressed. She asked me to do a little retaining wall while I was suspended, and that kind of got it into my system. And then I worked with a landscaper subsequently. And finally, in 2007, I learned about this group in Kentucky called the Dry Stone Conservancy. And I went down to Kentucky and took a workshop. So that was kind of the aha moment when I was like, oh my gosh, now I know that I didn't know. And that was a real turning point. I was able to go on the road and do several projects with them. Dry stone construction preceded mortared work, and the forces that you're working with are friction and gravity in dry stone. The structures themselves tend to be a little bit wider by virtue of having to put the length of the material going into the wall. So they're a little bit bulkier than wet stonework. It's thousands and thousands of years old. Just how many thousand, no one knows. So, but you know, the pyramids are dated around 5,000 years. The Great Wall, with all its many branches, which they're still discovering new branches of that, thousands of years. A World Heritage Site up in the Orkney Islands of Scotland, over 5,000 years old, and that includes standing stones. And these were more like open-air temples, kind of like the pyramids. In terms of the time frame, it's always kind of an open debate, just how old dry stone is. With just a basic field wall, otherwise known as like an agricultural wall, more in the old world, where it's meant to be stock-proof, to contain sheep and cattle and whatnot. Those should be properly built. They should last 100 years with very little maintenance. If you can attain the 1 in 100 year maintenance type protocol, you're doing really good. And some of the typical interruptions in the life of a dry stone wall is snow plowing. And then in agricultural environments, it might be a cow that just hooks his horns on the stone and it becomes a plaything. And he's like, I got this, I'm gonna just keep, dismantling this. And then the sheep, of course, are notorious climbers, so they'll wreak havoc on a wall. One of the great things is that you're able to work outdoors typically, and you're able to look back over your shoulder at the end of the day when you're walking to your vehicle and say, look what we did. And it's probably going to be there tomorrow and maybe even longer than tomorrow. And it's practical too. So like in this case, this will make the driveway a little bit more durable, and aesthetically it's beautiful to look at something like this. Any stoneworker, stonemason or waller, dry stone waller, should be immediately looking at 3 different things. And it doesn't matter if it's a building stone or even if it's a little crumpet of harding. So look at any stone here. You look at the face of it, what the person is going to see, flat, which typically goes down, then the length, which goes into the wall. So those are the 3 things that you look for. This project incorporates stone, which came from Elmer's, the whitish limestone, like this massive material in the foundation here in the wall head. And then some of it is also the Michigan fieldstone. So basically, field gatherings that might be out in the woods or on the edge of a field. And that is the predominant amount of the material in this wall is the Michigan fieldstone. Splitting is done in a variety of ways. It can be done just with a hammer, with a sharp edge hammer, preferably carbide. So then it can be done with holding a hammer and then striking that hammer with another hammer. And then another way of splitting, which is a little bit more laborious, involves drilling these holes with a rotary hammer and then placing in these little pins and feathers, which pins and feathers, or wedges and shims as they're called, they're used in the quarrying industry today, and they've been around maybe since the 1820s. So prior to that, for eons, it was simply just one singular wedge. These little feathers, they have bulges at the bottom, so those bulges help get the splitting action deeper into the stone as the wedge is driven in there. It's harmonic. I mean, it's almost like music. As you're tapping the wedges in, you can hear the tonality change. And it doesn't require a lot of force with the hammer, and it's one of those delicate things where as you're tapping along, there's an incredible amount of force that's taking place inside that hole. And so it's helpful on the stone that might be a little bit dense or questionable to kind of let it rest, walk away and just let the forces at work keep working. Different stones do split differently, and with the stone that we call flat bedded, meaning it's flattish, and that's a term that's often used in stonework, that is easier to take consider it like a book and set it up on edge, and you can just find the separation line in all those layers and really easily delaminate that kind of flattish stone, which would be, say, for example, limestone, sandstone, something like that. And then typically, like the Michigan field stone is going to be more, it might have separation layers, but more often than not, the Michigan field stone is an igneous stone. So it's different from the sedimentary stone in that it's more just kind of homogeneous and held together, and probably a little bit more dense and harder to split than the flattish sedimentary material. I would say that with the resources that are available, there's just a world of possibilities.